Okay. Hi, my name's Sarah Jones, and I am one of the student reps for the Student Association. And today I'd like to welcome you to the talk with Michael Irwin. Michael is an OU student and he's contributed to a book called The Degrees of Freedom, which I'm sure he'll tell you all about. And I'm sure he'll tell you all about how his life has been transformed by his OU education. Now, it's before I start with that, just to remind you that there's Q&A section on the side of your screen. If you want to ask any questions, just pop them in there, and at the end there'll be a Q&A session. But now it's just my very great pleasure to welcome Michael Irwin, and I want you all to enjoy. Thank you very much, Michael.
Cheers. Thanks very much, Sarah. Good morning, everyone from Belfast. It's a bit cloudy and dark outside, but so excuse the lighting. My name is Michael Irwin. I served a 12-year prison sentence for drug trafficking. I've done 6 years in prison and 6 on license. During my time in prison, my first 2 years was in England and Wales, and my last 4 years was in Northern Ireland. So I served in 6 different prisons during that 6-year period. My sentence was actually completed a year ago last Friday, so I had a wee bit of a celebration for that one, because it was a first time really as a free man, like a year down the line. However, it sort of comes with a what do you call it, double-edged sword, because since my time outside, what people don't tell you is that under the Rehabilitation of Offenders Act here in Northern Ireland, if you serve more than 2.5 years, you'll never have a spent conviction. And in England and Wales, it's 4 years. So, and I think Scotland's 2.5. So, despite having qualifications, I've got a master's now in criminology. So, despite all my experience of prisons, excuse me. So, despite that, it's very difficult to get work within inside the field that you're actually studied for, which would be like criminology, prisons, and criminal justice. So, it's not all roses at the end of the day. But I suppose with my story, I sort of have to start back in Cape Town in 2007, about a month ago in 2007. And the day I was leaving to do my trip, I was actually on my hands and knees on the floors, scraping some cocaine that had spilt on the floor the night before. And I was sort of, dabbing it like that to try and get myself a hit before I had to go to the airport to start off my trip to the Caribbean. But I remember distinctly at the time going, Jesus Christ, you're in a bad way here, boy. You need to get caught and maybe do a degree in prison. So it was one of those ones, be careful what you wish for, because at the end of the day, that's what happened. And as I said, my journey hasn't reached the end yet, so this is just sort of where it started yet. So, but anyway, if you fast forward a few months, I arrived at my first prison was HMP Lewis, where I received an openings course, and I can't remember the name of it, but it was one of those intro courses, and I was introduced to a guy called Philip Zimbardo, and he was talking about the Stanford prison experiment. And I know it's a bit out of flavour at the minute, because whether it was truthful or not, but what happened was, it still resonates, because what happened was a senior officer came to my door, prison officer came to my door and told me that I had to go and see a senior officer. But the way that he told me wasn't very polite. There was a lot of expletives used, and I'd never met the person before. And I went, what gives this man the right to speak to me like that? But whatever, reading the chapter, what made me think even more was, would I be like him if I was wearing a white shirt, if I had a uniform? So that's what really got me interested in, if the roles were reversed. So that's what got me interested in studying. So, when I'm doing these things, I always like to thank the OU coordinators and tutors who've been involved in anybody's journey in prison, because what they do is they come in and they actually come in and visit you. So they come into the prisons themselves and during your modules, and discuss your TMAs. And you're not just dealing with the stress of, doing academic work. You're also dealing with the stress of daily living in prison. And prison, as I know, and well, most people who are involved in prison, is a pretty hopeless place. So, the main thing you to do is to get out of your cell and keep busy. And so for me, my OU studies allowed me to do that. And to be honest, right towards the end, when I got out in 2012, I didn't have a minute. You know, I was glad I got out because I was exhausted. I done my last exam like 12 days before I got out. So I was like, phew, you know, I was burnt out. So for me, the education in prison was about people learning to read and write, because there's a lot of, like 50% of the population can't read or write. So education department wasn't really geared for me. For somebody my age who had been out in the real world and, you know, been around a bit. But anyway, I was lucky enough to get into the Open University. And for me, prison was like a battleground. And education was my weapon of choice against an unfair and unjust system. So though you allowed me to survive in prison, and I honestly believe that without the OU, I wouldn't be here today. You know, because it was just, it was something you needed, something to keep you going, to give you hope. And, you know, hope is what you need in prison to get through it. And I always sort of, excuse me, I like the sort of, if anybody's ever seen the movie Apocalypse Now, when Chef gets off the boat with Willard to go and pick mangoes, and they get spooked by a tiger, and then whenever they come back, Chef's freaking out in the boat and going, never get off the boat, never get off the boat. Well, for me, the education departments in prison were like that. They were like the boat. They were the safe space, and if you stayed there, you know, that's where you would be safest, the most safest. But where I felt more safe was actually in the pages. You know, you'd have your computer screen, your TMAs, excuse me, and you'd be sitting, and you just, this was your bubble, and, you know, nobody could touch you in there. And for me, it was a fantastic thing to do. And you know, I mean, a lot of the people that I sort of met over the years that have studied always said they would get up like 5 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, and study, because this was before the prison woke up. And you know, not everybody sort of agreed with what you were doing. Not all staff were supportive, and you know, it really was it was very difficult at times. And you know, for me, I suppose that it's something we should never give up on, because whenever you I was at Hyde Bank Young Offenders Centre there before Christmas doing another talk about something else, about the Learning Together project. So for me, it's what people don't realise, that whenever you get out, you've done your prison part, but people are genuinely interested in what you did whenever you were in there. And if you said you just went to the gym or something, you sort of get a blank look and people don't want to know you. But whenever you say, like, excuse me, the likes of myself, you know, I did a degree and then went on to do a master's at Queen's University, you can actually see their faces change. And, you know, people end up, especially taxi drivers were always good, you know, they would go, fair play to, you know, stick it to the man, you know, get in there and get more, you know. Whereas whenever they initially picked you up and they came up in the conversation, they'd be sort of, you know, you're not going to rob me, are you? So it's one of those things about being accepted. So it's really important that you know, people understand how important you use your time in prison, because whenever you get out, it will be looked at. You know, society will sort of want to know if it you know, if your time is spent well. So that's something I did. I mean, I've written my experience in an actual book called My Life Began at 40. Excuse me. Which was when I went to prison. So it's a journey from, you know, my arrest until my release, and then I continued it when I got out with a blog called mixirvin.wordpress, and then I was lucky enough to be invited to write a chapter for Degrees of Freedom, which I was at the Open University last November, I think it was, doing a talk. And you mean, to celebrate 50 years of the Open University in prisons, and it's just a wonderful thing. And to see the names of the other names of people who have written, and there was like Urban James and a few others, and I was like, wow, you know, this is. So I've read most of it, and I would advise you know, any of you to ask your tutor to get them on your reading list, because they're it's not just my voice. You know, there's loads of people that like me that do this all over the world, and I'm part of a conflict criminology who helps with that. You know, so pick them up, and if you can get them, you should enjoy them. You know, so I'll just I'm going to keep this short because I'd like to get some questions in. What I was going to say is I'm going to leave you with a little quote that I used. I mean, I fought the system, but my book is more about my education journey and that journey of hope. But I always used it to use my knowledge and intelligence to query and question the policies that were made inside prison. So it didn't always. I wasn't always Mr. Popular. So I mean, I took like 5 judicial reviews against the Northern Ireland Prison Service. I lost them all but one because I was able to draw attention to the actual policies, you know. So I'm just going to leave you with this little quote from Degrees of Freedom, and it goes like this. Due to the petty punitive regimen of the institution, it may be worth considering that after all irrational form of protest has been exhausted, there is very little left to bargain with. And is it then the case that education is the last bastion of rebellion within the psyche of a disenfranchised identity? So pick that one out and have a wee thought about it. You know, so education's power when you can challenge and use your knowledge and your education. The Open University and its courses provide that. So I think I'm going to hand over now. That'll keep it within time and hand over to Alan for some questions, if that's okay.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. That was really inspiring, and I believe many of the students who are actually tuned into this would have found that inspiring. So we've had quite a number of questions coming in, Michael. So I'll straight head into question number 1, which is we had a question coming in from one of the attendees asking, what did you find was the hardest thing about studying in prison?
Getting a quiet space and working it around your day. Whenever I started in Belfast, there were no study rooms. There were education rooms, but they were used for IT and that, you know, so you had a room there, but they were never utilized properly. So I actually got study rooms on each wing. So I got it on my wing first because I was on the same wing for like 3 years. So I got it on my wing first. And by the time I left prison, the authorities had bought into this, and there was a private room, study room in each prison where 5 or 6 prisoners could go into in each wing and study quietly. So I think that was the biggest challenge. And the second challenge, I suppose, would have been certain staff members didn't like the idea of you walking about with books. You know, who does he think he is? He's always questioning us, you know. But that was, you know, it's changed. It's changed from my time, you know. But it's still there, you know. As people don't like if you're in the regime of control. People don't like asking questions, you know. So you shouldn't have too much knowledge. You're all meant to be thick and do as you're told. What is it? Treat them like mushrooms, feed them crap, and keep them in the dark, you know. So that would have been the most hardest, I suppose, getting time.
Interesting. So we've got another one here. As more questions flood in, how hard was it to study when moving about from prison to prison?
It was very difficult because I couldn't get started properly until I came to Northern Ireland. So I was actually held back for 2 years because certain paperwork wasn't filed. So it wasn't as joined up as people think it is. Whenever you've got all your books and stuff, you know, you're moving from prison to prison quite a lot. People think you go and stay there in the same place. You don't, because you got court appearances and you might be locked out of a prison and you have to go to another one temporary. So and then you're constantly moving wings and cells as well. So it's very difficult, you know. It could be better, you know. The OU have it there, but it's more to do with the admin in the prisons itself, you know. So it can be very difficult. But I was lucky when I got back to Northern Ireland because I only had 2 prisons, and I was in Magabry for like 2 months, and then I was the last 4 years, more or less, I spent in McGilligan, which is when I done the bulk of my studying in McGilligan. But because of the time frame, I had to double up on a couple, so I was actually doing 2 modules at the same time, which was quite interesting. You know? So there we go. I'll do that one, Alan.
Okay. Another student here is asking, how supportive have the students in secure environment team at the OU been towards your, I guess, your study or student journey?
Oh, well, I mean, as I said in the talk there, to take the opportunity to thank them. I mean, each and every one of them, tutors, OU coordinators, I mean, they give me nothing but support. I mean, prison, as I say, you're dealing with prison life, and say you've got a deadline, you've got a TMA coming in, and you're having problems on a wing, or you're having problems with family, you have all this prison stuff going on. So whenever you go over into the education department, you sort of sometimes, you're just sitting with your head down and you can't see the screen, you can't see the words because there's so much going on. So the tutors and the OU coordinators, they're not just teachers, they're like counselors as well, because they're the ones that pick you up, they're the ones that keep you going. And me and the guys that I was studying with at the time, that each and every one of us wouldn't have a bad word to say. They're so supportive, and they deserve medals, really, because they're stars, superstars.
Yeah, I think the system will be happy to hear this. That's really fantastic.
But this is why I'm saying, this is why it must continue. This is why it mustn't fall by the wayside. There's a lot of talk. There's always talk about money and what it's worth. I say I wouldn't survive prison without those people helping me. So it really is important that, because it is special, and people come out different people than they went in because of it. So it has to keep going. And the support's fantastic.
Yes. So another question here for you, Michael. How did you use your degree when you came out of prison?
Well, whenever I came out, unfortunately, I only got a 2.2. So because of my last exam was like 12 days before I got out. I mean, I was only a couple of % away from getting a 2.1, from getting the first. But in hindsight, I could have deferred it. But anyway, whenever I got out, what my degree did was enabled me to get to Queen's University. So I applied to Queen's to do a master's in was it October. Whenever I got out, so that was like 6 months later. So I started my master's, full-time master's at Queen's. So that opened that door for me. And then whenever I did the master's, obviously I had the BA and an MSc. So that allowed me then to, I was sort of volunteering with organisations helping former prisoners, reintegrate into society. So I was able to go to loads of meetings, and with government, I was able to meet the MPs. I was able to meet the heads of the prison service, and some already knew me anyway with a frown sort of thing. But what it did was open doors for me. This isn't just a guy who has an experience of prison. He also has an experience of the research and the academia. The academic research behind that, which reinforces your experience, and they both work together well. So I was some of the top brass actually received me with open arms, because I was saying what they couldn't, because they were in a certain position where they couldn't rock the boat. So it really helped me with those things, and I've continued that over the years. And then I went on to my book was published 3 years ago. So then that with the academic stuff, just it opens loads of doors for me, and I sort of select what I want to do now. I used to take too much on and sort of got a bit of burnout, but I take it slow now and just go and do talks. And I've now become a board member of a charity here called the Turnaround Project at Hyde Bank, which is helping young men and women reintegrate back into society. And so that's what it's done for me. I could have been doing lots more, but health things held me back. But that's what I'm doing at the minute. So it really, without that kickstart without that step up. But I knew that from the very start of it. I'd have been leaving prison when I was 46 years of age without any qualifications. So what was the chance of me getting employment? It was virtually zero. So I knew I had to get letters off them in the end. And there was a couple of people, Shad Maroon, I was one, good friends now, and him and Phil Scraton was my supervisor, and they helped me get those letters. So without those letters, I wouldn't have those doors open. So it's it's very, very important.
Fantastic, and congratulations on that new position on the charity board. And we've got another interesting question here that goes: what would have had been different about your life or society to give you the same opportunity to study without having to go to prison first?
That's that question. Yeah, I mean, that's a very difficult one to answer. I mean, whenever I was at school, I knew I had I loved English. I was really good at English and writing, and I loved books. But I was just interested in, football and girls and beer, so it didn't compute for me. And then the irony of where I am now, if I hadn't did what I did, the crime that I committed, and went to jail, I wouldn't be sitting here now talking to you. So it's a bit of a paradox, I can't really answer it. There's too many left turn. I mean, I've had a very interesting life. So I mean, I used to be in public in London, traveled halfway around the world doing this and that. But it was only in later years I got into the cocaine. So that changed my life a little bit. But for the negative, it was good at the start. But the drugs changed me, which led me to that, which led me to prison, which led me to the Open University, which led me to good things now. So I can't really answer. That's just my experience. So I don't say there's one point. Like many people have been through this sort of thing, I'll say there's no one point, but definitely going to prison changed me, and changed me for the better,
Yes, again, another interesting question here for you. How did you get your mind to click into gear for education? The student goes ahead to say some days they felt unmotivated and did put stuff off until another day. And their grades were still good, but from what you've described to now is phenomenal. How did you get it to click into place?
I think my biggest thing, I did a course. It was a breathing and meditation course in 2008 when I was in HMP Highdown. It's called Prison Smart, and I'm actually an ambassador for that as well. You can get it on YouTube. Just click Prison Smart. And what it did, it allowed me to be calm about myself through meditation, through breathing exercises. So I started doing that every day. And, it was just this thing about getting up and putting one foot in front of the other. And you couldn't lie in prison. People think you lie in your bed, but if you're not, I mean, I was busy all the time. So for me, it wasn't like that. I was so busy, I had to find time to fit my studies in. So I suppose, and then I was also doing creative writing, and I was teaching guys English, teaching guys to read and write, and so that was my inspiration, because I was the guy with books, and then guys would come into my cell, they'd be a bit hesitant, and and some of them weren't the nicest guys, but and I'd done some horrible things, but what I found was that they were all like little boys inside, and they just needed somebody to sort of believe in them. And via teaching them English and stuff, that gave me inspiration to do more, for me to do better, so that I could get these letters off them and them, and teach and do talks like this and share my experience. So that would have been my drive. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. There's days that sometimes I'd take weeks off, just concentrate on music or something like that, but everybody needs to do that when they're studying. You need to, or you'll go mad. Like, you just need to take time. So for motivation, I would say it was helping other people and being able to do that.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. This. You believe me or not, you're getting more questions here, and we'll be wrapping up in a few minutes. We've got 2 more questions, and the second last being: did you see a shift in attitude from some prison staff or inmates towards you because you were studying, i.e., respect or even disrespect?
Yeah, it was both. I used to fill in complaint forms for staff because they couldn't do it themselves because they would be seen to be going against the prison. So I would get a little whisper from some staff. I got on well with staff because say people sort of knew I was all about my education. I mean, it could cause trouble if I wanted to, but I did it in a different way. But some of the staff recognised where I was coming from and were very supportive. The wing that I was on at the end was a restorative justice based wing, so it had that sort of mindset anyway. But I used to fill complaint forms out for them because they didn't agree with something, and I used to go through the ombudsman for prison staff, And then there was ones that wouldn't have worked on the wing, ones that would have come on and said, "There's that so and so Erwin, he's always causing trouble. He's always asking questions. Who does he think he is walking about with those books?" And I remember there was one time there was one of the staff that I got on really well with because he liked rock music like myself. And I know you wouldn't believe it with her, but yeah. No, so he had said this guy from another wing had come on to relieve somebody, and he says, "There's that so and so Erwin," and he says, "Have you ever met Michael?" He says, "Why are you calling him all these names? Do you want to say?" He says, "I'm not going to say hello to that so and so and all the rest of it." And he made him wait, and he went and got me. He says, "This is Michael Erwin, this is so and so. He thinks you're a bit of a." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "I've never met you. I've never done you any harm." And he says, "But you're always asking me, why not? I mean, you've been stuck in this job do you not want it to be better? Do you not want to have an easier day? Do you want to have a better life?" So he changed his attitude straight away. And I actually met the guy for a pint whenever I got out, bumped into him in a bar, and he didn't run away. He says, "I'm really sorry about that. We sat and had a beer together." So yeah, it all depends how you handle yourself. They're not all bad, put it that way. But knowing what you're talking about certainly helps. So I hope that's answered that question for you.
Yes, fantastic. And this is the last one, I promise. Last question.
That's good. I'm enjoying this.
It's absolutely fantastic, this. So the last question for you, Michael, is: have you had the opportunity to attend a graduation ceremony?
Could you repeat that, Alan?
Oh, sorry. Have you had an opportunity to attend a graduation ceremony?
Oh yes, I had both. I had to wait a year for my Open University one at the Waterfront Hall. I had my mother there. I couldn't have my dad. My dad was in intensive care. At the time, he wasn't very well, but Mum was there, and she was proud as punch. And our Justice Minister actually got up from the audience and shook my hand as I was walking back to my seat, which was a big deal. And then a year later, 2014, 15, 14, I had my master's graduation at Queen's, and Mum and Dad were both there, and they'd been divorced for 30 years, so it's like their first time together. And my mum said to my dad, "Are you not proud?" Whenever I was up on the stage, he told me later, but my dad says, "Proud?" He says, "I can't even breathe." He says, "I've never been as proud in my life." So yeah, I've had my graduations, and the right people were there, because my dad, without my dad, I'd had none of this. He paid for my masters, he paid for everything, and give me the support, give me this roof over my head, So without that, graduation was fun.
Fantastic. I think, ladies and gentlemen, this brings this magnificent session to an end. Unfortunately, I must say, Michael, it was indeed a pleasure to have you on here. I think the students will agree with me. This has been very, very inspirational and motivational talk. Thank you for sparing your time.
Not a problem. You can get me on Twitter, Mix Erwin. I'm always there. Absolutely,
and I think definitely students will be following you after those who don't know much about you. But once again, thank you, Michael, and thank you all those who attended this, and we wish you a very good rest of conference. Thank you.
Lovely. Good luck, guys. Thank you.